Houston Healthcare is an award-winning multifaceted healthcare provider with locations throughout Houston County, including 2 hospitals, 3 urgent care med stops, Women's Center, Heart Institute, surgery and rehabilitation services, and a variety of physician practices, serving the needs of residents and patients from all over Central and South Georgia, with over 2,000 healthcare professionals committed to providing the best possible healthcare for our community. Houston Healthcare, advanced medical care, closer to home.
Good morning. Where you guys been? What a celebration of so many things that have gone on in our community over the past year. I remember that just 12 short months ago, we had one of these. And here we are back again. So it's great to have you guys here. Let's see. Yes, I am Jay Flesher. I found my name tag this morning. Many of you guys may be in the same boat. But we want to celebrate that we're here. We want to celebrate the triumphs of this year. We want to console the tragedies of what has gone on over the past year. But we want to honor the effort of so many in our community. And by being here today, that's really a big start in starting this up and going into 2021 and the future of what our chamber is. So if you will, quickly, let's bless the food, and then we'll move on to the pledge. But if you guys will, please bow your heads with me. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for everything that you give us each and every day, Lord. If you look out today, what a beautiful day it is in the middle of Georgia. If all those men and women that have done so much in our community to keep it moving, even through the tragedy that has taken on to this community, and the importance that it is for our business community to come forward and gather together and work together, Lord. If you will, please bless the food to the nourishment of our bodies and our bodies to your service. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, there's so many to think over this past year of successes and also the tragedies that have happened. If you look back, so much of what the chamber was at this time last year, it is not any longer. It's something different. And we want to honor that, and we're excited about the future of that. This morning I am pitch hitting. Normally the chairman would be up here, and you get the past chairman. Shane is actually helping with his school duties of administering some testing this morning, so he's off doing that this morning. But he did want to tell you how excited he is about where he sees the future of the chamber going. And matter of fact, we're all excited. I mean, if you guys have seen such the rock star that our chamber staff is, and transitioning into the Robbins to Go efforts, but also the videos and putting out so much virtual meetings that we could to try to keep this community connected was absolutely awesome, and we're excited about that. If you will, let's say or applaud the efforts of our chamber staff. What a rock star group that has been, and what a great opportunity that is. All right, so April has given me some notes here to sort of go by. So the first thing I want to do is Synovus. Synovus, thank you for stepping up to the plate and being the first one that has or allowed supporting this event that allows us to gather like this. If you guys know, in the corporate world, there were a lot of pullbacks about in-person meetings over the past year. There's a lot of decisions in that happening, and this is the very first one that we've done. And so, notice, thank you very much for supporting that, Ron. Thank you for what you guys have done here for us. Thank you. And I guess my final thank you is today, as you look around the room, is to Houston Healthcare. Houston Healthcare has a great facility, has a great staff. Charles, thank you for allowing us to be here in this situation. As a business community, you have to come together. You have to see each other. You have to interrelate. And being in a room like this, and the great room that it is, thank you again, Charles, and your staff. Thank you. All right, so let's see. I think we have a video. I was right. What a
businesses have new safety compliance measures. To help local business comply with these new regulations, we designed 3 signs that are ready for our businesses to print and post right away.
The Chamber has been an absolute great asset for the entire community, whether you're a community member or a business owner. They're doing a great job of connecting the needs of the community with the businesses that are able to support it. And it's a great example of how an organization has been able to adjust during this very challenging time. It's basically an expectation that we all have from each other, and the Chamber has done a great job of role modeling that type of behavior where the times change, the challenge calls for a different activity, a different response, and the way that the Chamber has responded with the digital program, connecting the community with other businesses has been just a great example.
Robin's To Go page has been awesome because it gives people a way that are not able to get out and about to know about other things that are open. It gives us a vehicle to promote other businesses. It gives us a way to promote, especially like if someone's looking for something specific. That page has been super helpful.
The most frequently asked questions are about hand sanitizer and disinfectant.
This book is Miss Quigley's Tree by Dorothea Warren Fox.
You to share with us, is it safe for patients to go back to the hospital, the med stops, or their doctor's office?
It absolutely is safe. I would say not only yes, it's safe to come back. I would encourage people in the community, if you're having clinical symptoms of any kind, you need to go to the med stop or the ER or your physician, whatever is appropriate for your symptoms. But
shop local, and shop safe.
Let's keep the cheer here. Keep the cheer here. Let's keep the cheer here.
Let's keep the cheer here.
Let's keep the cheer here. Let's keep the cheer here.
Let's keep the cheer here.
You guys, what an awesome show. 2020. Believe it or not, that celebration of a year that was a pandemic and panic and everybody just really didn't know what to do, and you had such a great leadership come out of our chamber that really brought resources to the table, but brought optimism to the table in so many ways. So again, what a great day it is in Middle Georgia and Warner Robins. All right, so next up we're going to have Mark Musgrove with Secure Health come up and say a quick word as he is the session sponsor for today. Come on, Mark.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I typically have about an hour-long presentation that I gave to this, but I decided to kind of whittle it down when I was told it was only a minute. So very briefly, we're really proud to be a part of the chamber. And Secure Health is a locally owned company, partially owned by Houston Healthcare, and we actually serve self-funded businesses in healthcare. And again, welcome, and we're really proud to be here, and really appreciate your attendance.
All right, I think that sort of ends my role, except for the fact that we're going to bring April and the legislators up this morning. And Ron, if you have a few minutes to come up, or a minute or so to come up.
It's a video.
It's a video.
Yep.
There we go. So it's a video, Ron. Thank you.
Hey, I'm the market president for Synovus Bank in Middle Georgia. I'm excited to be back at our Eggs and Issues and excited to hear from our legislators this morning. I wanted to take a minute and tell you a little bit about what's gone on the last 14 months at Synovus and how we've supported the community and how we've supported our customers. First, as everybody probably is aware, Payroll Protection Program started last April. Since last April, we started the first round. We have funded 19,000 PPP loans totaling $2.9 billion. In the second round, we've already funded 10,000 more loans totaling another $1 billion. Over the last year, we've helped fund $3.9 billion and 29,000 loans. Since the first quarter of this year, we've had over $1.3 billion sent to the SBA for forgiveness. There's been a lot going on with that. We're honored to be a longtime sponsor of the Eggs and Issues series, and it's always a treat to hear from the different constituencies that make our community such a great place to live. And I also want to take a moment to share the great work that the Chamber's been doing. You know, they've been in such a critical time, I might add. You know, they've been a champion for small business, providing vital support on full display this last year. And I've never been more proud of what their accomplishments have been and how they support our community than they are this year. But enough of that, let's hear from our legislators.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back. I don't know that I've ever been more excited to see each and every one of you than I am this morning. We had such a treat. There were about 40 of y'all here at 7:15 this morning, so we know that that is a testament to your eagerness for a return to in-person and business as usual, and we couldn't be more excited to host our legislators for our first in-person Eggs and Issues of 2021. For those of you who don't know me, I'm April Bragg with the Robbins Regional Chamber, and it is a great privilege and honor to help lead our business community. That 5-minute video that we showed, I know probably felt longer than something we would normally share, but I'm going to tell you, trying to cram everything that happened into 5 minutes from 2020 was virtually an impossible feat, and I would be remiss if I did not thank our past chairman, Jay Flesher, who some may think got the easy virtual route of hosting and being chair of the chamber in 2020. But I'm going to tell you, he did yeoman's work in the leadership of our volunteers, our amazing chamber staff team. Arlie and Tiffany and Michelle is in the room, and she has gone on to do other things, but we would not have been half the chamber we were able to be without all of their collective leadership. So I just want to publicly thank all of them. I want to thank all of the amazing partners in the crowd today. We want to be good stewards of the time of our legislators, so we're going to forego formal introductions, but I am excited today to be hosting our Houston County delegation, and these are no strangers to us, but we have Senator Larry Walker in the middle, and then I'll just go down with our representatives. Representative Heath Clark here, Representative Noel Williams, Representative Robert Dickey, and Representative Shaw Blackman. Y'all give them all a welcome round of applause. We're just going to open things up. Just Heath, as chairman of our Houston County delegation, if you just want to open up with some general remarks, we're going to have their committees scrolling so that you guys can see the different efforts that they were involved in. But we know 2020 was a session like no other, so I got a stack of questions that you guys submitted and some that we've added as well. So we want to make sure that we're good stewards of our time and maximize the opportunity for question and answer. So, Chairman.
Well, thank you, April. Thank you, Chamber, for everything that you do and for having this event. I was just thinking once I got up on stage, you were talking about 2020, but I don't know if we did so this is 2021, but I don't know if we ever did one for 2020 either.
We were virtual in 2020, so it was actually, I put it in an email, it was like 746 days since the last time we had y'all on a stage in this room. So, yeah, it's been a minute.
So it is great to see all the smiling faces, unmasked, but still socially distanced and taking responsibility there. But it has been a crazy year from everything that happened last year when the virus started going on and it started making its way, and then we had to suspend session, then go back in session in June to make sure we got the budget done because it had to be done before July, and then that jumped right into campaign season, and it was a vicious campaign season, and then after the election, some election controversy, I guess, into the runoff, and then right into session, and so it has been a year that I've never had as a legislator, and so I look forward to catching up with all of y'all, hearing from you. I am going to keep this short, but before I do, Mayor Randy Toms, just looking through some of those slides, the beard looked good on you, man. So it was a little gray, but it looked good on you. But again, just community. Houston County is here, Centerville's here, Warner Robins, the school board, Robins Air Force Base, Houston Healthcare. Y'all have been heroes during all of this, from the county government to the city governments to especially Houston Healthcare, and your workforce has been instrumental in our community. The base, I know a lot of maintaining security for national security, troops deploying, and on top of making sure that you were keeping everybody safe in your watch too. And then personally, and I guess professionally, I just want to give a round of applause to the school board, guys. Thank y'all. If y'all remember, back at the end of the summer last year, leading into the school year, there was starting to be some more spikes and some concerns in the school system. There was no good choices to be made at that point. Every choice you made, it was going to tick off half the people, and they made some choices. They made some tough choices. They looked at the data. They looked at the information that was given to them from the state and the CDC, and they made some choices to open a school, allow parents the options to put them in class or do virtual. And having 4 kids in the school system and a teacher that was in person, I think y'all handled that well. And I'm very thankful for you and the work that y'all done this year. We're wrapping up a school year, and I think Houston County is going to be an advantage going forward because of what we did this year, and our students are not going to be falling behind as bad as some other counties around the state. And it's because y'all made some tough choices and you stuck to it, and we're going to be better off for it. Thank y'all.
Awesome. Absolutely. So Representative Clark, you led in talking about the unique situation of 2020 and the interrupted session. Many things that started this session kind of felt like a carryover from 2020, especially as the budget is concerned. And I know from a constitutional standpoint, that's the one thing you've got to get done during session, and I know y'all had to make some very difficult choices in 2020 to cut funding for some agencies and things like that. What can you guys share with us? And y'all feel free to pass these mics to whomever is appropriate to best respond to these. But let's start with the budget and just some of the successes in 2021, some things you were able to put back, and some things that y'all might hold as a personal point of pride.
Just to continue on schools, you know, constitutionally we're mandated, the only thing we're constitutionally mandated to do is to pass a budget, and then we're also constitutionally required to provide a quality basic education for Georgia students. And we restored state portion, most of the money that we had to cut after COVID, but when you take into account some of the federal money that came in, the QBE formula was actually overfunded by $30 million this year, so we have restored pretty much all the cuts when you take all the money together to the school systems. And you know, that's one of the things that we tried to protect when we were making cuts. They didn't get the full 10% there, but you know, it was tough when you're coming back in, economy's rocking and rolling, we're cruising along, and then all of a sudden brakes get slammed on, and now we're looking at having to make cuts. After the House had already passed a budget that had increased spending, and then before we got it done with the Senate, we were having to make cuts, and on top of that, in the Senate, we lost the chairman of the Appropriations Committee in the middle of all that too, so that made it even harder, you know, it was just a tough year, but coming back, the decisions that Governor Kemp made during the height of the pandemic, some tough decisions that he got criticized for, to open back up in certain areas and try to remain strong and not have small businesses killed off, was vital, because now we're seeing the economy in Georgia outpacing most every other state, if not every other state, and we've restored most of the funding that we had to cut. But anybody else want to answer some of that?
You did a great job. Is that hot?
Press the one with the orange light. This one.
Just tap
Should turn green.
About that.
There you go.
No, just was going to add real quick. I think so we can get to more questions, I guess. But with respect to rural Georgia, there was an additional $30 million between the supplemental and what we did in this past budget for rural broadband expansion, and I think you're already seeing some of that. It's obviously you know, there's no question that we need to cover areas of our state that have not been covered, and then rural prosperity. The Innovation Center was also funded at about $40 million, so that we see things that we can work on across parts of the rural parts of our state.
Perfect. And you may want to hang on to the mic, because we're going to start talking about tax cuts and benefits to business. Y'all actually passed a number of tax legislation, the Tax Relief Act, the Georgia Economic Recovery Act, and the Economic Renewal Act. Can you share some of the tax cuts that took place this year, and how they do benefit families and businesses?
Well, I think that, you know, the two biggest things, you know, you saw the governor sign those during the session, was the adoption child tax credit, which actually expanded the tax credit for our foster children. So if you're a family and you adopt out of foster care, then you get additional credit. And then, of course, we were able to, and it was such a team effort working with the Senate and the other members of the House, and the Speaker championed some tax cuts for our working families. So we were able to raise the standard deduction for everybody in the state. And moving into economic development, we also, if you look at Senate Bill 6, which is going to provide for us some accountability regarding the tax credits that we have across the board. I think we enhanced the toolbox that you see regarding economic development. Angie Giesling and the Development Authority here in Houston County, along with our cities and our county commission, have really stepped it up a notch in a very tough environment. So I want to thank them, and the communication has been really great for everybody. From everybody, and the feedback that we're getting. So, you know, the specifics kind of get boring when you start talking about tax code, and I don't put everybody to sleep. But we did do some things for rural Georgia and Shortline. We extended the Quality Jobs Act credit. We looked at our mega tax credit, and we dipped our toe into some other industries regarding PP&E and pharmaceuticals and what we can do for our defense industry as well. So hopefully that's good for Georgia and helps move us out of this past year a little quicker and in a little stronger fashion. So thank you.
Very good. I know military issues are always something that we like to address here in this forum. There were a number of military bills that passed, some that are still, as we'll talk about later, being carried forward into the second year of this cycle. But can you just, y'all discuss amongst yourselves and share some of the military legislation that was passed and perhaps some things that are still in the pipeline?
Well, I don't want to take up all the time. So the last count I got was this last session we passed 13 bills relating to either active duty or veterans. I think now we can say it's up to 16 signed by the governor because that count didn't include some interstate compacts. And what those interstate compacts deal with is employment for military spouses or veterans and having some reciprocity with professional licensing in other states. So, and I think we did $70 million in the bonds directly related to expanding some of the things that we do around our military, in our military communities or veteran services and things like that, as well as almost $200,000 for the Troops to Teachers program. So to help members of the military who want to go into education, $200,000 additional into that program to help get them transitioned into their new career. So continuing to look to be very a friendly state for our veterans, our active duty reservists, guard members, and their families, and we'll continue to do that. And I think back, what year was it that we started that military affairs? Was that 2016 or?
17,
It was the 2017-18 session. We had a military affairs committee that, like a study group that traveled around the state, and that was kind of formed out of a conversation. I had not seen her this morning with Chrissy Minor. We got lunch one day, and she was telling me what was happening in some other states. And I went back and mentioned it to some people about getting that up and going. And since then, I think we've passed nearly 50 or 60 bills related to military and what we can do in our state to be more military friendly. So we're going to continue to do that. And anybody else?
I would just applaud Chairman Clark and really everybody on the stage. It's easy to come together, I think, in the General Assembly when we're supporting our military families. And without Chairman Clark, we would not have seen the licensure move from what was in code a may for our licensing boards to a shall, and that was a big win for us with the Pentagon, as I understand it. And he deserves an awful lot of credit as Chair of Defense and Veterans Affairs. Has really done an outstanding job moving us forward, making us, if not the most military-friendly state in the country, one of the very most friendly. So, just
this next one should be. Oh, you want to go ahead?
I just wanted to add on. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. I would love for us to have a mask burning party. I think that would be appropriate and awesome. I think I probably have 25 masks, and I hate the sight of them. But I wanted to piggyback on what Chairman Clark and my chairman over here, Blackman, who told me, he said, "No, don't worry about wearing a tie today." So I missed the next year I'll wear a tie. But I did want to applaud our military because y'all don't get enough credit between our military and our police and our service folks. I mean, y'all are the ones that are facing the firing line, and y'all are dodging bullets for us. And thank you so much for what you do for us. And we can live in the greatest country in the world, and it's because of people like you. And we can't say enough thanks to you for what you do for us. And Thank you again.
It's a good day to share some love. And this one I feel like that y'all are gonna maybe play hot potato with, because it's the elephant in the room, which is what took up most of the time in the media, and I know the time in the session, which is the Elections Integrity Bill. We had a wonderful session several weeks ago with Representative Clark and Representative Blackman and our board of directors and our chamber top investors. We spent almost an hour unpacking this one topic, and so I left us plenty of room, guys. We got about 15 minutes, and I got about 6 questions after this, so I actually brought a stool for myself because I figured this one's gonna take a minute. But my hope in bringing this up is that all of you can kind of weigh in with your unique perspective on both where Georgia was prior to this legislation being put in place, demystifying some of the truths and misrepresentation of the bill, and really drilling down to what the intention and spirit of the law does and does not do. So it looks like Representative Dickey has a mic in his hand, so we're going to let him start while I grab my stool here.
You got Larry there, so I don't want to take up the picture. Is it on? I think I turned it on. Yeah.
Okay, so you want me to talk about election bill a little bit? It's a great bill. It's integrity. We had to do it. I know a lot of people in this room vote differently. And that's the American spirit. That's the way it goes. But at the end of the day, you got to have confidence that your vote was counted accurately and counted one time, and fair for everybody, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, who you vote for. And that was the intent of this bill. And I just hated the media and some others got into it in a very partisan way, because we over in the House, and I know the Senate with Chairman Walker. Everybody weighed in, and our legislative process is a process up there, and it starts in one thing, and it narrows down, and we really ended up narrowing this bill down, just to put some integrity into the voting process that we have, and we got a great process in this country. It's in this state, it's county run. Houston County runs their elections here and does a very fine job of it, and so that's kind of the system we have. But some other areas of voting after this election just had some real questions in a lot of people's minds. And we couldn't go into our next election with those type of doubts in the voters' minds. And so that was the intent of this bill, is to take the doubts out of people's voters' minds that our process is second to none in the world. And it's a lot of places in this world that don't have the free election and free country and liberty we have. And I'm just proud of what we do. We just had to build on it. It was unfortunate that the virus forced this on us, but I think some things work for the best. And we had a process that didn't have problems before, but once we hit the mail-in ballots and the lack of voter ID and that sort of thing, it just opened up, as I said, so many times. So that's what I see in this bill. That's what you will see the next time you go vote. I think you'll have a lot more confidence in what happens through there. And so whatever the outcome of the election, we got to make sure everybody has confidence that that's what it was. And so that's my take on the election bill.
So I'll weigh in on that too. But first, I want to thank Synovus and Secure Health for sponsoring this, and April and your staff. Y'all have done a stellar job this past year, and thank you for this opportunity to be here. Looking at the little slideshow, the video, man, what a great community to live in. It's fantastic, and Houston County is celebrating its bicentennial this year, 200 years, and we got a great legacy of good leadership in Houston County and good people, and I'm just proud to represent Houston County in the state senate, and mighty proud to live here. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and appreciate the businesses represented here that have been so resourceful in this past year to keep our economy going. And I want to just echo what Chairman Clark said, that I think Governor Kent deserves a lot of credit for being taking some courageous decisions, making courageous decisions to balance livelihoods and health of the community and not shutting our economy down. And that's why we're in a lot better position budget-wise than most states in the nation. And in fact, we're running a surplus. And we were able to restore a lot of the cuts, and looks like we're in real good shape fiscally, maintain our AAA bond rating, and kept people at work. We now have a workforce issue that we've got to deal with, but we'll probably touch on that later. But getting to the elections, I'm proud of the work we did on the elections. The pandemic, historically we have about 5% of our electorate vote by mail. Due to the pandemic, that number increased to between 25 and 30%. And that massive increase of mail-in voting really revealed a discrepancy and a difference in the way people vote as far as presenting an ID. So those of us that vote in person, we're accustomed to presenting an ID when we do that. Those voting by mail do not have, prior to this bill, did not have to provide an ID. And I think it's just common sense that we make it consistent with the way people, everybody's ballot ought to count just the same, and everybody ought to have the same responsibility of providing an ID. So it's not a burdensome thing. It's not voter suppression. There's been a lot of misrepresentation, and especially in the national media, not necessarily local media, but about that is aimed at suppressing the vote, and it is absolutely not. Georgia will provide you with a free state-issued ID if you don't have a driver's license. And there are other forms of ID that you can use, a passport, a military ID. There's a long list of IDs, so it's not a burden on the electorate to provide an ID. And I think that just restores, as Chairman Dickey says, it builds confidence with the public in that we have a free and fair election. The other thing is we expanded the opportunity to vote early. We did not take away no excuse absentee balloting. We left that. And we expanded it actually to 17 days. So you've got 17 days of early voting if you want to do it with no excuse, or you can vote on election day. We also put in code. Last year, if you remember, there was an executive order by the Secretary of State to allow ballot drop boxes, and there was some question as to whether that was even legal for him to have done that. We looked at that, and there was a lot of people wanted to, in our caucus, in the Senate anyway, wanted to eliminate ballot drop boxes. But we compromised, and we decided to just put them in the code as being legal, but regulate them and make sure they're in a brick and mortar building during normal office hours with security, so that people feel confident again. So it's all about the public trust in the outcome of the vote. It's not about voter suppression. A lot of the press wants to talk about, we're outlawing water, giving water to people, and if they're in line, and let's say you got a special election in July, which I actually experienced myself. How dare you all? I mean, what kind of crazy people are y'all in Georgia for not letting folks have water on a 100-degree day? Well, we've always had a prohibition from campaigning within 150 feet of the polling place. That's always been in the code. And all this does is say, if you want to give out water, you've got to do it beyond 150 feet to do it. You can set up a table and have water, but imagine, it can cut both ways. Imagine if you're in line and some group is handing out water with even if it doesn't have a label on it, and then they want to try to pressure you or coerce you to vote one way or another. It would be hard to prevent that. And it could be the Proud Boys doing it, or it could be some more liberal organization doing it. And we don't want that kind of voter intimidation. I mean, we don't want people not to go vote because they are afraid they're going to get harassed while they're standing in line. So that's the whole point of that. But it's a really good bill. I don't apologize at all. I'm proud that we did it. A lot of work went into it, and we tried to be very fair, and everything we did, you know, I believe will pass constitutional muster. We had constitutional attorneys looking at it, so I feel real good about it.
And I'll tag on to, why do people need water in the first place when they go to vote? Because the lines are too dang long, right? So when somebody's having to wait 2, 3, 4, 8 hours to vote, and again, counties run the elections, so what we did in this bill too, part of one of the measures in there was to say if a county has a precinct that has over an hour-long wait time during the election, by the next election, they need to address that by either adding machines to that location or opening up another precinct. And so the idea there was to try to shorten the wait time to where people don't need water. People can bring their own, but again, it was just about inside that 150 feet, that protected space that's always been sacred, keeping it sacred, and to prevent electioneering. But it covered, the bill covered so many things, but the question's always like, well, why now? Is just Republicans pass that because they lost an election and they're trying to make it harder for Democrats to win going forward? And it was hit on a minute ago by both Chairman Dickey and Senator Walker, Chairman Walker. And the issue was there were just a lot of irregularities exposed during last year because of the pandemic and the way people voted that we had to shore up that process. And just to restore the integrity and confidence people have in the election. So we added another mandatory weekend day of early voting, and to help people who, you know, they can't get out during the week to vote. So another Saturday, and optional for counties to decide 2 Sunday voting days if they so choose, if those counties so choose to have Sundays. So 1 and up to 3 days of early voting precinct days were added to the weekend to help try to as many people and opportunities to vote as possible. So now we have up to 19 days of in-person early voting. There's still the mail-in balloting, and of course there's always election day too. So,
well, April, it's been covered pretty well. The gentleman did a great job talking about it. I think the one little thing, or maybe just a little bit to add, and I want to thank you and thank the Chamber for, you know, a couple of weeks ago giving the opportunity to have this discussion. But our current election law was written back in 1964. And it's changed virtually every year in some shape, form, or fashion since then. Now, we saw some issues back in 2018. House Bill 316 addressed a paper trail, so now when you go and you vote, you actually scan a physical ballot as opposed to the old DRE machines. Then back this past year, when we saw kind of this next level challenge, June 9th presented some irregularities. We had actually 4 full days of hearings back then. In November, you had some other complaints and some issues that people had. We had 2 full days of hearings there. And we looked at best practices across the state. We also looked at some of the things that other states are doing. So, the idea was, how do we make sure election integrity and security is built into the process, considering the increased volume of absentee by mail, while at the same time preserving access. And I think we struck the proper balance, and I think we'll see that moving forward. Just also wanted to add that Georgia is one of the easiest places to vote in the entire country. It's easier to vote in Georgia than it is in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, Colorado. I'll go on and on. And that's number of days of voting, and that's access to absentee by mail, 3 weeks of early voting, and same day, election day voting. So appreciate the question, and if anybody has any questions moving forward, I think contact any of us directly. We'd be happy to try to answer those questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for that thorough coverage. So Representative Dickey, I think we'll probably pass this back to you. I know there were a number of measures taken this session to increase the teacher pipeline through a variety of different legislative measures. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I can, and I just, again, want to applaud our school system, for the work they did here in Houston County. We got one of the premier, if not the premier school system, in the state that just really, continues to do a great job with our young people, and a lot of our, other, systems across the state really look to see what, Houston County is doing, and I just appreciate, the great job they did to keep our children, in school, feed them and transport them, and it's a big job of keeping teachers and recruiting good teachers to our state, and it's really a challenge in rural Georgia. And as you heard Chairman Blackman mention, some incentives and some attention to rural Georgia. Not all our systems are run countywide systems and city systems, and not all equal. And Houston County is fortunate to have the resources that they do, but some other rural counties in our state really don't, and really struggle to try to recruit teachers to some rural areas. And so we put some tax credits, incentives to try to do that, and just trying to keep. It's a workforce issue. It didn't just pop up this year. They've had issues in the past, and we certainly talked to them. This whole delegation has it. And I'm just thankful, mentioned Chairman Blackman is chairman of our Ways and Means with the House this year, new and certainly has some ideas, and so many tax bills came through this year. And I just, again, want to say how glad we are that businesses, school systems, our counties and cities and military all just work together to keep the state's economy going strong, and healthcare as well. My wife asked me when I was leaving this morning, what are you going to talk about? I said, I'm not going to talk very much about what we did in Atlanta. It's really more about what the citizens did, businesses, healthcare, schools, all those did during this last 13, 14, 15 months. We never faced it before, and I think we come out on the other side much better and stronger, and I think that's a real testament to our country and to our state and to our local communities to do that. And I'm just proud to be a part of it, a small part of it in Atlanta. When I go up there, I love my farm, get out and see things there, but I really appreciate the help. This whole crew here and the others that couldn't be here this morning really pulled together for our local communities to make Georgia the best place, and Houston County and Middle Georgia the best place to live and work. And I'm just proud to be a part of it. Chairman Walker and I had new roles this year. If you love to eat and clothes and roof over your house, we've got agriculture covered. We both transitioned to new roles as chairman this year. He and the chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee and myself as chairman of the House Agriculture Committee. So huge industry in our state. I just really appreciate the working relationship he and I've had, friendship to move Georgia agriculture policy forward in this state. Thank you, Chairman Walker.
Well, and yes, you just stole my segue, was about both of you in ag. So if you can just kind of share, Chairman Walker, if you'll follow up on that with just, an update on agriculture and the great work that y'all are doing to represent us there.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Dickey. I've been a long time friend of Chairman Dickey and respected him. He does a great job for us, and they started picking peaches yesterday at his farm, so he's making a pretty big sacrifice to be with us this morning as they're picking peaches. But I encourage you to visit his farm in Musella and get you some peach ice cream. It's the best I've ever had. So it's worth the trip to go over there. They've got a historic packing shed, and it's just cool as all get out. He and I are going to have a really good time working together to promote agriculture, our #1 industry in Georgia, and we're the #1 forestry state in the nation too. We did have some good legislation to help our family farms. One in particular, family farms have long been, they've had their equipment and their crops exempt from ad valorem tax. There were some counties that were trying to increase their revenue, I'm sure, and took a stance regarding family farms and that exemption that we did not feel like was the intent of the legislation, so we made it clear in passing a bill that if two family farms, if they would individually qualify for this exemption, and those two family farms decided to partner together, they would still be eligible for that ad valorem tax exemption, and that's a big deal. The capital required to farm these days is huge. A cotton picker, I'm told, a new cotton picker costs $1,200,000, and you use it maybe 2 or 3 months, 2 months out of the year. So it makes a lot of sense for family farms that are adjacent or near each other to maybe share a cotton picker, maybe go into business together. That's just one example, and so that was a big deal for us. We are, Chairman Dickey and I want to see first-class state farmers markets in Georgia. The state owns, I believe, 9 farmers markets. One's in Macon, one's in Cordele. Those are the nearest ones to us here. The big one is in south of Atlanta, the Atlanta Farmers Market in Forest Park. It's a terminal distribution center for ag products. I'm not talking about your local farmers markets where you might want to go on Saturday. I'm talking about state-owned farmers markets. So we put money in the budget and passed a bill to have a joint House and Senate committee to study these markets and look at the properties, see what the highest and best use is for those properties, see if those markets are viable, and try to have a long-range plan for our state farmers markets. So that's just 2 things we worked on that I was involved with, but I'm looking forward to continuing the great relationship with Chairman Dickey. We've got a great House and County delegation. We all get along good. We all pull together and cooperate and work hard for our districts and for Warner Robins and House and County. And I'm just, to be chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, that's big. And Chairman Blackman, congratulations on that. And you're already hit the ground running and doing a great job. That is the committee that determines how the state brings in revenue. That's the tax committee. And revenue bills have to start in the House. That's in our Constitution. And so he's got a big, big job and a big role to play. But I'm just happy to be part of this team.
I want to piggyback on the farmers market because I'm probably the only one in this room that loaded watermelons in high school and college at the farmers market in Cordele. Were you at the farmers market in Cordele?
No, I loaded watermelons.
Well, I was just very, very pleased to know that when they started talking about closing our farmers market, I had some friends and some allies that were able to help us, go to Chairman England and say, hey, we cannot do this. So believe me, it is very important to Crisp County and to the Middle Georgia area, our Cordele Farmers Market. There's a lot of money that's paid to those high school kids and college kids, cash money that we never see, but it helps those kids get through school. And that was very important. And Chairman Dickey and Chairman Walker, I really appreciate your help and knowing the importance of our local farmers markets and what they do for our community. So I just want to add that.
I need it back.
Oh, excuse me. This is trouble.
Larry and I talked one thing we forgot to mention, our Agri Center in Perry. Very important facility, brings a lot of revenue to Houston County, a lot of visitors. And this whole team up here worked very, very hard to get funding. They could not have a fair last year, and that's the biggest part of their revenue. That carries the rest of the facility for the rest of the year. And this team right up here worked very hard to give them some extra funding to carry over until next October when they have the fair. And I'm proud to report we had a meeting with Chairman Walker and I there yesterday. They're back wide open. They got May Midway coming up. They got dog shows, horse shows. Hope you get down there and visit. And I'm just thankful that we could, our state revenues would allow us, they were ready to lock the doors down there, to be honest. It was that critical. And so that was a big win for Houston County and this delegation this year too. So.
All right, excuse me. This is trouble. 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 This
Thank you for that addition. As we approach the end of our hour together, I'm going to skip over some things that were burning on the minds of some of you who shared things like porch pirates and drag racing and ending citizens' arrest. So if you have personal questions about any of that legislation that passed, you can catch one of these guys at the end. But one of the things as a Chamber of Commerce, I think the thing that fueled us this past year was the innovation of our small businesses, and to see the business community learn to work in whatever was, and I hate these words, the new normal at the time, working with the different challenges and the environment that they were placed in. And so just to see how they came through, championed, and we saw a groundswell of community support, especially here in Houston County, for the businesses that call Houston County home. But now we're faced with new challenges in workforce. And I know Chairman Walker was just speaking to this. So from the state government standpoint, what do you see on the horizons for getting businesses back to fully operational and staffed, and the challenges, working through these challenges that businesses are faced with right now?
So every business person I talk to seems to be facing workforce shortage issues, whether it's a warehouse, in the restaurant business, in the construction, landscaping business, whether it's Innofor, who's doing a $30 million expansion at their lumberyard in Perry. It's just a challenge everywhere you go. I think it's time. The economy in Georgia is back open. I think it's time to eliminate the supplemental unemployment benefit and to I think it's time to means test unemployment benefits with the requirement that we always used to have, where they have to be actively looking for a job to continue to get unemployment benefits. It's not good for a person to be paid to do nothing. I mean, you're not doing them a favor. I understand that we needed to do that during this unprecedented time, but that time is over. People need to get back out to work. It's better for the individuals, better for the business, better for the economy, and I just think it's time everybody gets back to work.
Not much to add there. I guess just what April was saying and talking about what we've seen here locally, and that's where really the rubber meets the road. And we've all said it. Just to add my 2 cents in, I think the school system, with regards to number one business in our state, thanks to Forbes magazine, and y'all have just made it as normal a year as could be possible in such a next level challenge. And I think everybody's working really hard to do that across our local governments, and including our hospitals and our Robins Air Force Base and everybody. The biggest thing that I think we're moving towards, and I hope we see something like this happen, but it's been brought up to convert some of these benefits into bonuses for signing back on and going back to work. So I totally agree with Senator Walker and everybody else that it's time to get back in there and get going. And I think Houston County is a model, and we pat ourselves on the back and continue to push the envelope and move forward as we go along. So the Chambers have been a big part of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And along those lines, if you're not familiar with our Robins Works initiative, we have an ongoing effort to help connect employers and job seekers through a Facebook group, a dedicated page on our website. And if you know, many of you represent businesses that work with other businesses, and particularly the smallest of businesses who are struggling to find those entry-level job seekers. We have signs at the Chamber, as well as most of the financial institutions in the county, that they can pick up, reminding people to be nice to the ones that actually showed up to work today. And it's amazing how that just reminder of that we're all in this together, it really does go a long way. So anything that we can do at the Chamber to help advance that. And then we've got ongoing programming with Spirion Staffing to make sure that we're providing employers with best practices to make sure both in employment recruitment and retention that they're staying competitive and not banking on things to necessarily get better immediately when those unemployment benefits are retired. So we got about 3 or 4 minutes left, and this may be too big to fit into that, but I'll ask y'all to do your best. So I know this is, we just completed year 1 of the 2-year cycle. I know there's some legislation moving forward. But let's talk about, I think, one of the big things, nationally, we were all participating, and thank you so much for the support here in Houston County for census participation when that came around. But all of the data collection and redistricting got delayed, and that's going to be coming up. I know the federal numbers have come in, and Georgia's going to remain or maintain the same level of representation at the federal level, but I think we're anticipating numbers in August statewide for redistricting. Can you guys talk a little bit? I know Senator Kennedy is not able to be with us, and I know that he's the Senate chair for that, but if any of you would like to weigh in on just what that process looks like. I mean, it only comes around every 10 years, so it's not really fresh on our minds, but I know in today's environment, it's likely to be volatile.
Robert's the dean, he's the only one that's been around.
He has. Maybe just to give him a minute to think about it. The one thing, communication is such a big deal, from at all levels. And Middle Georgia, I feel like we do that, really, really well. We work so well together. You saw what we have here, 2 chairs of agriculture, the #1 industry in our state, Defense and Veterans Affairs, and Representative Williams, he's on the WHIP team, and he's vice chair of insurance, and just a huge part. But it goes beyond that. You have members that aren't here today, Senator Kennedy, you mentioned, and then Representative Mathis, but Representative Bentley, who's just over in Peach, and you have the minority leader, James Beverly, and Marion Paris, and Dale Washburn, and really we work awfully well together, and I think that's the formula that makes us, a little bit different and enviable across the state. And I think that will be part of what helps us during the process here in the fall when we look at redistricting.
Yes, none of us are going to look forward to going back in the fall to do that, but it's something that's required for our congressmen for us to redistrict congressional districts as well as House and Senate districts. And we've got the numbers in, but it's going to be in the fall before we do it. And we're going, it's a somewhat contentious process. Everybody man for himself wants his district. But what really we want to divide up, I think every House district is going to have 60,000 citizens in it. Senate, about 3 times that. 191. And so I think we'll process. We got some real experts, computers to draw those districts, and we want to be able to draw something that will not be put in the federal courts. Last time we did it 10 years ago, it stood up to the scrutiny of federal courts. First time that had been done in quite a number of years, and so I think we want districts that reflect fairly and evenly a population of people in it. And all parts of our states is changing. Houston County is changing. Peach County is changing, Bibb County, and this redistricting, I think, will reflect that. Unfortunately, for this part of the area of the state, we're not growing. Maybe Houston County is, but so many other parts in South Georgia are not growing. But Metro Atlanta is growing tremendously, as you all know, and we'll get more representation under this redistricting thing. So it means less representation for the southern part of the state as far as number of state senators and state representatives that Metro will gain. So you'll see that. It's not an even process. Sometimes it zigs and zags and a lot of things, but just be patient. We'll get it done.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I would just encourage everybody, we will make sure that we communicate out with the members. I know there's a listening tour that takes place, and as you mentioned, the way that those are done is with population shifts, and so just being active and engaged in the process so that you're informed why decisions are being made and how they impact you and what district you belong with. So that is going to conclude our time together. You guys help me thank our legislators, both for their service and for sharing time with us today. I want to echo our thanks Secure Health has been a long time sponsor of this particular session, and we're glad to have you. They have a gift for you, individually packed at your table, and in case you didn't get enough hugs to meet your hug quota, a deficit from this past year, we have free hugs in the middle of the table. You can grab some of those on your way out. And we look forward to hosting you guys again. We're going to be back here for Eggs and Issues in July. Our workforce breakfast that was scheduled for March, we rescheduled for July, so Angie Giesling and her team will be here with us then. And we have Business After Hours coming up next month on June the 10th at Women's Health Care. And we hope for those of you who are anxious to get back to networking and seeing each other, we hope that you will be there as well. Make sure you check your Tuesday email every week to see the latest from us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.